We're live on Facebook. Hello, everybody. Hello, Facebook friends and family. I am Love Coach Scott Thomas, and I am here with my wonderful teaching partner, Trish Wright, and our favorite guest, Mark SIMS. And Mark is coming to us from the International UFO Conference in Laughlin. He's been there all week, and he has got a lot of incredible news. I'm going to go straight to putting the spotlight on Mark. Mark, where do you want to start tonight?
Well, hi, everyone. I'm coming to you live from Laughlin, Nevada, which is a place you can totally avoid. But for the conference,
head of the Laughlin Chamber of Commerce here with us. I had invited her as a special guest.
Oh, gosh, I don't want to get myself in trouble. But anyway, we've had a wonderful week so far. This all kicked off on Saturday when Danny Sheehan gave the keynote speech for the event. I've been with Danny all week, and he and I have been working and attending this conference. So I'll share with everyone what's going on kind of the New Paradigm Institute front. That's the organization that Danny and I started in 2015 that we're getting ready to take to the next level. And that has everything to do with the Harmonic Convergence 2020 event or 2021 event that's going to be shortly announced for July 4th through July 14th. So for those of you that may not be aware, last year I organized and was the executive producer for a 10-day event called the Harmonic Convergence 2020 event. I am doing it again, only this time we're doing it officially for 11 days, starting on July 4th. And we're doing it on a place called the Observation Deck. And I want to encourage anyone watching now to please go to the Observation Deck, which is theobservationdk.com. Again, that's theobservationdk.com. And if you scroll down, you'll see a free 7-day offer to check out the Observation Deck, which is a virtual world. It's a virtual conference center that just was launched about about 40 days ago, 39 or 40 days ago. And it's a conference center where people interested in the UFO phenomenon can hang out and exchange ideas. And the way that you get around is with a avatar. So you download some software. It does require for you to download a program on your computer. You can only, unfortunately, access it on a computer. You can't do this on a tablet or on an iPhone or an Android phone. But it really is worth your time to download it for free and then set up your avatar and then check out the place. And you might just find me there because I'll be spending a lot of time there over the next month, getting the whole virtual world set up for our 11-day conference. And the other reason you'll want to do that is because tomorrow evening, and I'm trying to find the final time. I should check my phone because I'm waiting for a confirmation for a time. We are going to have a experiencer panel with people who are here in Laughlin, these amazing experiencers who have come out of the closet for the first time in their lives to publicly share their encounter stories like mine. And we're going to be there on the Observation Deck, and you guys can watch for free. So this is a really great opportunity. So please go there and install the software. And by the end of this Straight Talk program, I'll give you the time so that you can know when to show up. So this week has been amazing. Lots of things have happened. Disclosure has really kind of taken a quantum jump in terms of the government's acknowledgement that there's something out there. We know now there's something out there. There's no question about it. And we know it's not ours. We are pretty darn sure, in fact, we're damn sure that it's not the Russians, it's not the Chinese. So the question is, where is this? Where are these vehicles that seem to be defying the laws of physics as we know them? Where are they from? And so there's been a lot of very serious discussion among the panelists and presenters who are here, some of them scientists, some of them from the military, um, and others that have kind of chimed in. People like Richard Dolan, a historian who's been studying this as much as anyone, has had some interesting hypotheses about who and what this might be, this phenomenon. Um, but I think the consensus generally is that this is a phenomenon of multidimensionality. Specifically, we're talking about higher dimensions, and that we seem to be interacting with phenomenon that are coming from somewhere else. And, these higher dimensions seem to be a plausible answer, especially when you consider the latest out of physics, things like superstring theory that point to multi-dimensions to explain the nature of reality, and the elementary particles that fall out of the standard model in physics, things like bosons and fermions and quarks and gluons and electrons. All these are different types of elementary particles, and they all this body of research that has evolved over the last 100 years in quantum mechanics and quantum theory say directly that we live in a multi-dimensional universe, of which are 4 dimensions of space-time, 3 dimensions of time and one or 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, creating this object called space-time, coined by Albert Einstein in the special or the general theory of relativity. That's only 4 dimensions, but superstring theory says there are many as 26 dimensions. So where are these other dimensions? Well, I think we're on the verge of finding out. And so that there is a general consensus among the people that are in the know and people that have been researching this for decades, that at least part of this phenomenon is that it's multidimensional, as well as beings from other star systems in our galaxy and maybe beyond, maybe from Andromeda and other galaxies. So it's very exciting. This is a whole new world now. And the question becomes, now what does the government do? What is the government, with this report that they're obligated to issue about what they know about the UFO phenomenon or the UAP phenomenon? This is coming out on the 25th of this month. What's it going to be? What are they going to share? And the consensus, again, with the people here is that it's basically going to be nothing new, that they're going to punt, they're going to kick the can down the road. And we've all agreed pretty much that that's okay. We believe that the government has been involved in disinformation and confusing this issue so much, so badly over the years, that they frankly can't be trusted, even if they were to come out and say something of substance about where these vehicles are and the occupants or the intelligences controlling them. Would we believe them? Would people in Europe believe our own government? In the Middle East or in Asia? Of course they wouldn't. And even us citizens know that we've been lied to for decades, not on just this issue, but many other issues. So we feel it's really up to us, the citizens, to step forward, that we have a responsibility and an obligation to create a citizens diplomacy initiative. And that's the main theme of what we're doing for the Harmonic Convergence in July, starting July 4th, which, you know, beautifully enough is Independence Day. And so we're going to start talking about what would it mean? How would we go about doing this? Who would be involved as, you know, a member of high standing, to be in the advisory board or ultimately on the board of an organization that would begin working on this question of establishing diplomatic relations with our brothers and sisters up in the stars. And then what would we ask them? How would we engage in them? So these are all big questions that need input from people in the know, people who we can trust in this community, and people like Danny Sheehan, who's a role model for this community, is really, I see as our leader, as one of the leaders of this consortium or of this body of individuals that will be involved in this process. So we're going to kick it off officially, and Danny is going to be speaking during the Harmonic Convergence. We're going to actually kick things off on July 4th, announcing our plans for the following 10 days. And so we're putting that together. So it's very, very exciting.
Mark, can you put in the web address for the observation deck?
Yes, I sure can.
For all the panelists or not the panelists.
And Mark,
yes.
I don't know if you noticed, but I actually did pull it up while you were talking about it. I'll pull it up again. So while you're talking about it, here it is, the observation deck, and that's theobservationdk.com. And then people should, do they need to become members, Mark?
Well, there's a free login thing, or a free offer, 7-day access. You do need to register, but there's no obligation to pay. And so you can, you know, kick the tires of it. And again, tomorrow night, we're going to be having an experiencer panel that I'm going to be leading. And we've got, well, I want to, before I name names, I should, you know, do a final confirmation about this. But we have some amazing people here at Laughlin that are willing to be on the panel. And some of them you have heard about probably if you follow this field much. Others you have not heard that are incredible. Their stories are just incredible. So I'm really excited about having them joining us.
Beautiful. And I'm going to go to gallery view for a moment so that we can see. Trish, as you hear all of this, what comes up for you?
For me, I'm just like really excited, and I'm like, why are we not in Nevada right now? Like hanging out with Mark. I know why. This is on me. But I'm also just really excited about what you're doing, Mark, and what you're always doing. And I'm excited to check out and how you said kick the tires of the observation deck. There's so much that I have that I would love to just sit down and have conversation and tea with you or whatever it is that you drink.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it at the observation deck tomorrow. Well, here's what we'll do. I'm going to, why don't you continue talking, Trish? Why don't you share, give me your wish list. If you could have me for an hour, one-on-one, with anybody here who's watching this program right now, listening in, what would you want to ask me? And let's ask the people right now watching us. If they could listen in, what would they have you ask me?
Well, what I would ask is, when I meet a being, what do I do? Like, because I'm going to be like, I'm going to get starstruck and I'm going to be like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. Do you want to have tea? Like, I have snacks. What do you eat? Do you have dietary restrictions? Oh my goodness. Then I'm going to make it weird. How do I make friends? That's what I want to know. And some of the other comments are coming in is, can you give us a teaser experience? Oh,
Yes. So what I can tell you is from personal experience, I back in 2012, everybody probably knows my story that I went to
we
this
love your
6-day
stuff.
event. And on the 5th night, I saw this amazing object in the sky above our group. And I knew when I saw that they are real and that they're here. And so later that night, when I went to my hotel room and couldn't sleep, I decided to see if I could summon one of these beings that were behind this craft that I'd seen into my hotel room, and it worked. Well, let me tell you something. You know, I was ready. You know, I was like, okay, I can do this. You know, I'm ready. Let's do this. When that being appeared at the end of my bed, that was shocking. And you know, I know you're in. Everybody's like, okay, I'm ready for this. Yeah, this will be great. You really need to think about it because it's going to be much different than you anticipate on many levels. One, because you're not sure who it is that's going to show up. Is it going to be a reptilian? Is it going to be a gray? Is it going to be a light being like, you know, a celestial being like Tejbar? So you don't know what you're going to get. You know, ETs are like a box of chocolates. um, and then, you know, if it's a physical being like a reptilian, that could be really freaky. And you've got to really be in a state of calm and trust. And that your fight or flight response is going to kick in, that cellular response of, you know, just freaking out. It's really something. And this one issue is something we're going to focus on during the Harmonic Convergence. We're going to have a number of presenters talk about their own contact experience and what was it really like, and what advice would they have for people that would like a similar experience. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Uh, you know, I want to build a little bit on what you were saying about how powerful it is to be building this community. And I agree with you that having Danny Sheehan at the forefront is really, really valuable because he's an attorney and he has been fighting the fight for so long. The Pentagon Papers, the Karen Silkwood case, on and on and on, all the way through Standing Rock and beyond. And almost every major um, citizens wanting the truth with a government that is lying or corporations that are not looking out for our best interests, Danny's been at the center of that fight. And once again, it's happening. The whistleblower who was on 60 Minutes 3 weeks ago, Danny is now representing him, and the government is trying to discredit him. And next week, Danny will be in Washington, D.C., meeting with the Inspector General with the Pentagon on one side and his client on the other. So he's really been at the center of this for so long, working closely with you, Mark, working closely with Stephen Greer. And we all are coming together, and there's all this knowledge that's coming forward. And even if the government punts, the very fact that now it's made it to the New York Times, it's made it to 60 Minutes, it's a national, international dialogue that, yes, the objects that we are seeing in the sky are not of human origin, and they are clearly highly, highly, highly sophisticated. And it's an extraordinary time in the UFO field. Last thing I'll say, and then I've got a question for you, Mark, is that I've been in the UFO field for a long time. I've produced a lot of UFO television. We might talk a little bit about that tonight. But this is it. People have been wanting for this level of coming out. And what Mark is doing that I love is that as the consciousness is rising, and it's no longer an if, but it's a what? It's not, are they from another realm? There clearly are. It's like, okay, who are they? What are we experiencing? And it opens the field for all of you watching. And I want to acknowledge we've got 40 people in the Zoom room and many, many watching on Facebook. Whatever experiences you're having, whether they're lucid dream experiences, whether they're connections with our, friends in the stars, whether they're with angels, aliens, archetypes, now is the time that our consciousness is expanding without psychedelics, without drugs. Our consciousness is expanding, and these kinds of experiences are much more available. And that's why it's important to talk about it, because then it makes it safe for us not to feel like we have to hide our experience, but we can share it. So that was kind of the statement I wanted to make. And Mark, I'm going to put the spotlight on you because I want to ask you, what are you experiencing at the UFO conference? Is there like a greater level of people feeling comfortable sharing their experiences? And what are you noticing?
Oh yeah, there's an energy that's at this conference that hasn't been here before. Everybody's talking about it. There's an excitement. Um, all the people who've been in this field, whether they've been a researcher or an experiencer or somebody else that's been involved, they really feel this is what the time that they've all been waiting for, that the government has finally acknowledged that this is a real phenomenon. And it's opened the floodgates, really. It's just every day there's something in the news about this. And the question is, is this trend going to continue? Is there going to be more and more disclosure? Is the mass media, mainline media going to continue this story? Or is there going to be, a rolling back of it? And that's one of the big questions right now. And there is some concern among people like Danny and Richard Dolan that there's a possibility that they're going to roll this back, because some of the people that were, for instance, writing in the New York Times about this phenomenon, specifically Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, they were the ones that broke the story about the Navy videos that were released from the Pentagon and from the Navy back in 2017 that kind of got this whole thing going. They are not writing any more articles in the last few days, and now it's kind of the standard substandard people from like the New York Times, the journalists that are writing these articles, and there's just nothing there. There's nothing new, and they're bringing up this threat question and not offering any. They're kind of framing this phenomenon as if it just started in 2004 with the Navy video that was released, when this has been going on for 70 years plus, and there's no mention of this. It's like it just happened, and they're acknowledging it as a new phenomenon, and no discussion about how this has been dismissed and by the government, by the Pentagon. Even in the last few years, when Louis Elizondo came forward as a type of whistleblower, nothing about the fact that he was demonized. I mean, the Pentagon originally said that he was lying, having ever worked for them. And that's one of the reasons he hired Danny Sheehan, is because his reputation was on the line. He was being drugged through the mud, and people were like, even Greer was calling him a disinformation agent, and others. So it's just a shame that there isn't better journalism on this from the mainstream media. Leslie Kean, who used to be the partner with Bud Hopkins, who was hypnotist and psychologist who was interviewing and hypnotizing abductees back before John Mack got into it. In fact, it's Bud Hopkins who introduced John Mack to the whole abduction thing and got him interested in it. And so, there's just so much interesting, rich history here that isn't being brought out. And the only people I see really doing a good job of this, surprisingly enough, is Carlson Tucker, who frankly, I'm not a big fan of Fox and I'm not a big fan of his, but he's the one who seems to be really interested in this topic and has had Lou Alessandro and others on his program since this story broke. And CNN is finally coming online, but it just appears to me that there's a lot of the major news outlets that are dragging their feet on this. And if they're offering anything, it's just very, very superficial and not really investigative journalism. This is the time for these people to get serious about this. This is the most important thing in human history. That, in my opinion, it's, our world will never be the same once contact is made. And this is a major step in that direction.
Mark, I want to read a couple questions that are coming in from our audience. Carol writes, what is the experience of telepathic communication with these non-terrestrials? Will we automatically send and receive telepathically? And knowing you, Mark, I want to just expand it out to maybe you can share with people your experience of telepathic communication and how other people can cultivate that.
Sure. So actually, this is a very good question, and I'm really glad whoever asked that question. Thank you. So I spent 13 days back in 2013 with this celestial being named Tejbar. And he walked into my body. He was not physical. He was what appeared looking, a being made out of light, this sparkly, scintillating light. He was transparent, and I greeted him. He entered my body, and I began interviewing him after I, got over the initial shock of what had just happened to me. And he explained to me that we were in a state of communion, which was the union of three things. So this is where it all begins, that we human beings are both physical, of course, but we have this other body that he referred to as the astral body. It's the subtle energetic body that survives physical death to typically be reincarnated to continue our experience and our spiritual evolution and our conscious evolution. But we at some point graduate from this stage of consciousness, the human stage of consciousness, to ascend to a new experience of consciousness in which we gain access to new dimensions of awareness. We'll call them that. So the 5 dimensions of awareness that we have as physical beings that seem to preoccupy our experience are the 5 physical senses. But Tejbar explained that there are 5 additional dimensions of awareness at the astral level, the next level of our evolutionary conscious progression. And one of these dimensions is telepathy, okay? Now, telepathy is something that is available to us. It's a dormant dimension of consciousness. Just think of us as infants, that a child or a baby is not born day one with the ability to walk. It takes practice for them to, get to grow into this youthful body and to develop the controls to manipulate their limbs and remain balanced and to walk. And so that's what telepathy is like. It requires practice. And there are exercises in which you can practice. I don't claim to be an expert in this by any means, but there are techniques in which you can develop this capability. And this is one of many capabilities that are available to us. Another one that he mentioned specifically was astral projection. This is the ability to take this energetic body, the astral body that's contained within the physical body, and separate it, physically separate it, to travel. And your perception travels with this astral body, whatever it is, and you can observe things and move around. And this is another dimension of consciousness or dimension of awareness that is dormant in us, and with practice we can develop. And we don't have to die to develop it. We can do it as physical human beings, but it requires discipline and practice. It's kind of like working out and building up your muscles. You're not going to be strong, you're not going to be the strong person without putting in the time to work out those muscles. And over time you'll build strength and endurance, and all of a sudden you start looking pretty good, and you're pretty strong, and you feel good as a consequence of that work. So this is what was explained to me. I hope that answers the question.
Sorry, I was
yeah.
It's so I think what I'd like to get your input on is for people that have not had these experiences, it's opening up, but I'm really hearing you say that it's available for everybody. And
Yeah.
these are like muscles that we can build. These are aspects of our being that anybody can build at any time. What are some possible first steps people can take to cultivating a greater connection to the other side?
Great question. And the reason I'm smiling so big is because Tejbar, over the last 9 years, especially in 2013, 2014, and 2015, those first 3 years after my experience, he gave me exercises to do. And they're really weird. Let me give you an example. The weirdest of all the examples was he asked me to wear an eye patch over my right eye. Now, that was just weird, and to wear it persistently for a number of weeks. And when I was contemplating doing this, one of the problems I had wearing an eye patch consistently, driving with an eye patch is a little dangerous. I was worried about that. But the bigger issue was, people would ask, what happened to your right eye, Mark? And I didn't want to say, I didn't want to lie about it. And I didn't want to say there's something wrong with my eye, because my eye was perfectly fine. But I ended up wearing this eye patch for about 3 weeks. And he explained to me that I'm very left-brained. Being a scientist and an entrepreneur, a businessman, the left side of my brain is just overheating all the time. And because of that, my right brain, the right hemisphere, is not getting the exercise it needs to keep up. So Tejbar was saying, Mark, your hemispheres are out of balance. You need to bring them into balance. And he gave me some ideas of things. Drawing sacred geometry was something that he suggested I do, or any kind of art project. So I began drawing all sorts of sacred geometry figures, and that was amazing. So that is one exercise I highly recommend. People go just Google sacred geometry, and on YouTube, there's some really cool little short videos on how to draw different sacred geometry figures, like Metatron's cube, this guy right here. That's a really powerful sacred geometry figure, and you'll learn all about it. And as you're drawing it and thinking about it, and things come to you as you draw it, the beauty and symmetry and the fractal nature of the symbol, and the fact that circumscribed inside of this Metatron cube sacred geometry figures are all the Platonic solids: the cube, the tetrahedron, the icosahedron, the dodecahedron, and the octahedron. So all these Platonic solids are shown, you can find in the Metatron's cube. It's just really beautiful. And there's so much more to it. I mean, you can go on and on with this thing. It's such a cool thing. And by drawing that, you make these connections. All of a sudden, what I liken it to is that parts of my brain get turned on automatically, things that I would have never anticipated. All of a sudden, I start getting ideas or thoughts in my mind as I'm drawing and doodling with these different geometries that, you know, they're epiphanies, you know, that take me into new directions. I'll be on my computer and start Googling something new that because of an idea that came into my head while I'm drawing. And that would take me down a whole other subject. But, you know, wearing the eye patch, if you feel like you're one of those people that needs to balance the right and left hemisphere, if you consider yourself very left-brained, that's a great one. And he explained it to me that, what did he say exactly? I'm trying to that our, so it turns out that our, if you, and you can look this up, that the left hemisphere of your brain processes everything that comes from your right eye. And this is proven scientifically, and vice versa. So everything that you see in your left eye is processed by the right hemisphere. And those two images are kind of create a composition that your mind interprets as, you know, stereo sight with depth perception. And that a lot of energy goes into processing visual imagery. Okay, so that of all your senses, your eyesight takes more energy than the other four senses combined. So that's why it's good to meditate with your eyes closed, because you're regenerating some energy, some of that, you know, energy in your body to calm down. And then you can, you know, so by turning off, you know, the left hemisphere, or by shutting down the visual processing in the left hemisphere, you're forcing the right hemisphere to process 100% of what you see. And that's really good, according to Tejbar. And what ended up happening, surprisingly enough, after a few weeks of wearing this eye patch, is I began seeing weird shit. For instance, I'll give you a prime example. I had a girlfriend at the time who I'm no longer girlfriends. We're very good friends, but she's no longer my girlfriend because she still lives in Michigan and I now live in California. So we kind of had to end our relationship, our intimate relationship. And she was with me during this time, and I was explaining to her everything that I was going through and why I was wearing this eye patch. And one evening we're having dinner and I'm wearing my eye patch and I look up at her and I suddenly see her as a energy being. Okay, she looks like gold, like a gold snowy figure, like the television, you know, back in the day when we had regular TV and you'd get a signal that was really faint and it was real snowy. You would see an image, but it was mainly, you know, static, visual static, we called snow. She looked like that. So her whole, she looked like a human figure of snow, of this golden snowy light, but her eyes and her mouth were like normal. It was the freakiest thing. And I looked at her and I had to take a double take and I'm like, you won't believe what I'm seeing right now. And she's, you know, she's oblivious. And so I explained it to her. And it was one of the coolest experiences ever of any of these exercises that Tejbar gave me. So, so that's an example.
Mark, you're brilliant. And thank you so much for giving us, you know, really clear. I mean, we've talked before and I love action steps, right? And I love to do, like, that's my being. So I love that you're giving clear, actionable steps that we can practice to, gain more telepathic insight, and giving us really clear understanding to be in trust and be in calm. And that takes a level of internal self-trust and calm, right? Like, okay, I got this, and I can be with another person or another being or another, well, anything, and know that I've got me right. I would like to move the conversation slightly.
Okay.
I want to know about, because I know that we're running out of time, but I really want to. Can you give us like some really cool tidbits of the UFO mega conference that you're at right now? Like, can you tell us what's going on? Can I live
Okay.
vicariously through you?
One of the people that presented is Ray Hernandez, who is a lawyer from the Miami area, and he founded the free organization, the Foundation for Research and Exceptional Experience, or something like that. And he published, along with others that were working with him over the past 5 years, he published a unprecedented study, a scientific study on the nature of extraterrestrial experience, through experiencers' testimony, and also other related phenomenon that at first doesn't seem so related. For instance, NDEs, or near-death experience, out-of-body experience. These all, according to Ray, are part of the same phenomenon. Extraterrestrial contact and near-death experience. Now, that's counterintuitive. So he really did a great job explaining how these various phenomenon have a lot to do with one another, how they're all part of the same thing. And while he was doing this 5-year study, he happened to meet this woman who's a medium, and her name is Ruth Ann Friend. And it just so happened, this is just so crazy. So she also presented, but she's only here because of Ray. Ray learned about her through his study. He reached out to her and listened to her story. She's a contactee. She had a near-death experience when she was 16 years old. She was in a car accident. She's now around 80 years old. So she had a closed head injury. And when she healed, and because of it, she had a near-death experience. She was told that it wasn't her time to go. She returned to her body, and she all of a sudden had this new psychic or ESP ability that has remained with her for her entire life. And so she's made a living. This is what she does for a living, is mediumship. And she's one of the most reliable, prolific, consistent people that can call relatives. Okay. So the organizer for the conference, his name is Bob Brown, did a raffle drawing for a free session with her. And there were 5 people selected out of the entire conference. So, we all got to, if we had a ticket, and of course I had a ticket, so I put my name and my phone number and I put it into the barrel to be drawn later. I was the second person drawn for this free thing. But the condition of it is that we had to be filmed, and they would show the film during the conference, which they just did today. So I happened to be in the conference when they were showing the film of me being interviewed, or me with my channeling, or her being the medium. And I told her nothing about who I was. I told her nothing about who I wanted to contact. But just to give you a little bit more background on this, I wanted to win. So when I put that thing in there, I went into the bathroom and I went into a stall. I sat down to be alone, frankly, and I meditated for a little bit, and I reached out to my deceased grandfather, my father's father. His name is Harvey SIMS Jr. And Harvey SIMS, I was very close with. He's my grandfather when I was born, of course, but he was my best friend growing up. Literally, he taught me how to fish when I was 4 years old. He taught me how to shoot a rifle when I was 6 years old. I used to go hunting with him when I was, 6, 7, 8 years old. We would go quail hunting. I learned how to shoot a shotgun at the age of 8. He taught me how to clean fish, how to clean rabbit, squirrel, quail, fish, or birds, and how to cook them. And so by the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I was actually going out hunting on the farm and bringing game back and preparing it for myself mainly. But a couple of times I made dinner for my family, for my grandpa and my grandma. And really made me feel like an independent young man. And so this is my grandfather. Okay, I loved him dearly, and he was in the Air Force. And I learned about the age of 8. I asked him for the first time about his time in World War II in the Air Force, because he had this beautiful picture of himself in the living room of his farmhouse with his uniform on. And I said, Grandpa, what did you do in the Air Force? And he said, well, I was a secretary. And I was really underwhelmed. I was surprised, like, a secretary? Come on, weren't you a pilot? And he says, yeah, I was a secretary. And I was kind of, well, who were you a secretary for? And he says, I was a secretary for a general. And I said, well, who? And he says, well, it's nobody you would know. So I dropped it, and if he wasn't a pilot and he didn't have any combat, he made it clear to me he was stateside the entire time during the Second World War. But when I was 16, I visited him again, and I asked him again, because there's that picture on his mantle. And I said, Grandpa, you said that I remember you telling me you were a secretary. He says, that's right, I was a secretary. I said, well, who was the general you were a secretary for? He says, well, I can't tell you. And I said, why? Why can't you tell me? And he says, well, I can't. It's just something I can't tell anybody. And so I asked my dad about it. I asked my aunt and uncle about it. My dad has 2 siblings. And over the years, I would ask them what they knew about my grandfather's time in the service. And they all said they were never told. Well, I recently found out from somebody who who introduced himself to me as a consequence of the Harmonic Convergence last year. He was participating with his wife in the Harmonic Convergence. He's a retired CIA analyst. And so he contacted me to share his unique experience during the Harmonic Convergence last year. And we developed not a friendship necessarily, but, just a dialogue. And it occurred to me that maybe he would have friends that are still in the CIA, or, he himself would know how to find out who my grandfather worked for. So about a month ago, I sent him some photographs of my grandfather. And I said, could you tell me, here's his name, here's his rank, here's all of his photos. He texts me back about a week later. He says, your grandfather worked for General Henry Arnold. Now, I didn't know who he was either. So just for those of you who have no clue who Henry Arnold was, he was the first 5-star general of the Army Air Corps. And he became the first general of the Air Force, again, a 5-star. And he's the only general in history to be a 5-star general in 2 branches of the military. And so my father was his secretary. He was on his staff. We'll say he's on his staff. I'm sure he had a large staff, but it's now confirmed that he was a secretary. And the reason he couldn't tell us about this is because General Arnold was the general during the Roswell incident. He was in charge, and my grandfather was involved in that, helping, type up the papers and deal with all the craziness that must have been going on back in July of 1947 when this craft ship, with the dead bodies are found. And this is why my grandfather knew if he said, who he worked for, I'd be giving him I'd be like, tell me everything you know, because that would have really piqued my interest. And he just didn't want to go there. So I want to show you, if I can share the screen, hopefully, this is my grandfather's graduation picture from 1939. His name is Harvey Jim Sims Jr. He's my hero. I get choked up talking about it. But he's an amazing man, very religious man. He was a Christian, and it was his most, it's so ironic that one of the reasons I became an atheist is because of my grandfather, because he was so insistent that I accept Jesus as my savior and as my Lord, and this was when I was young, and I was just a little apprehensive. I felt it was, he was almost irrational about it. So anyway, this became a real issue between us as I became a young adult. I was so angry because my frame of reference, or my attitude about it, was that he had been brainwashed by institutional religion, Christianity, and that he was just obsessed with me being, accepting Jesus. And in fact, I eventually got baptized at the age of 16, the same time that I visited him when I was 16, because I was living in Michigan and he was still in southern Indiana, and I didn't see him very often. So I was visiting him, and I told him, because I loved him so much, I said, I think I'll get baptized. I want to get baptized. And it was only because of him. I was ambivalent about it. He immediately calls the pastor and says, Mark wants to get baptized. I'll meet you at the church. And he grabs me and he makes a couple more phone calls, because I have all these relatives in southern Indiana, right in Elnora and Odin, Indiana, near Washington, in Evansville. So my grandfather makes about 20 phone calls, and all my relatives show up. I'm like flabbergasted that, I'm now with the pastor, he's, sitting me down and explaining what's about to happen. And we go up on the stage in front of the congregation, the church, and there's curtains, and he's filled the dunking tub, where I'm going to be baptized with water. Doesn't tell me, by the way, that it's cold, because they've left the hot water heater off to save money, so there's no hot water. And the curtain opens, and there's like 100 people there, all my relatives, and I'm stunned. And so I'm in a robe. I have only my underwear on under the robe, and he tells me to take my robe off. So I'm now in my underwear in front of all my relatives, and I walk into this freezing cold water, absolutely freezing. But I'm on stage, and I can't stop. If they weren't there, I would have said, nope, this is too much. But the show had to go on. I let him dunk me underwater. I don't remember if I recall maybe 3 times, and he said a blessing each time. I come out, I'm, so my grandfather, I did this all for my grandfather, because I loved him that much, even though I was kind of ambivalent about it. So I was baptized, and but later, as I matured and developed my identity associated with this, I decided to become an atheist, and kind of, what's the word I want? Just ignored or threw aside the fact that I had done this. So anyway, what I want to do I noticed, is that John Martin? Hey,
Yes.
John, it's great to see you, buddy. Uh, how are you?
I'm
Uh,
doing I'm doing well. It's so great to see you too, Mark. You
it's
have
great.
such a clear vision for all of us, and thank you for your incredible work. It is such a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Oh, thank you, John. You're so sweet. Everyone, this is John Martin. He's a dear friend of mine from Atlanta, Georgia, the Atlanta area, and he's an experiencer and a contactee. He's got a YouTube channel where he posts these amazing videos and of ships that appear near his home when he meditates and plays music. And so you've been featured on television on the Travel Channel, and so thank you for being here. I didn't know you were going to show up.
You
Well,
know,
it's
I saw that John was there, and I am so impressed with John and all that he shares. So this Sunday, my Sacred Sunday show is going to be John and your other friend Debs
Right.
sharing their experiences and really looking at how making contact, whether it's with angels or aliens or like you were saying, it's like the near-death experience world merging with the ET world. These are all ways to create spiritual awakening. So that's going to be our show this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited about that, and Deb's being on the program with you. That is fantastic. I'll be there if unless there's some reason I can't be.
Great. That would be wonderful.
And so in the time I have left, I have to run here shortly. So I'm going to stay for another 15 or 20 minutes, but I would like to finish with two things. One, some more photos of my grandfather, which I just got. Literally, some of these I got today from my aunt, who has all of my grandfather's documents. And she and my uncle, who live in Indiana, are going through all of his papers. They've never looked at them since he died in 2011. And they're going through there to see if there might be anything historically relevant regarding the UFO phenomenon and with Roswell specifically. So I want to show you some pictures. So I'm going to share the screen here.
Okay.
This is my grandfather.
Wow.
That, standing in front of a aircraft in Texas at the base that he worked at with General Arnold. And let me show you another here. This is him with the staff. This is a very rare picture. I don't believe this exists anywhere that I found. So this is General Arnold's staff. And my grandfather's in this picture. General Arnold's in this picture. And there's a special patch that I found out that only his staff were allowed to wear. It was called the Hap's Arnold Wings patch. And it was very prestigious for anyone to wear this patch. So let me show you something. Let's see. Well, while I bring up the next picture, here's my grandfather fishing. This was in Texas when he was on the base. There was a lake nearby.
In the fishing picture, we're seeing your interview assets. There we go. There
Oh,
is the wedding
oh,
picture.
so you're seeing this?
Now
This
the wedding picture.
Okay, so this is my grandfather at his wedding with my grandmother, Ruth. And see the patch there on his shoulder? That is the Hap patch. So let me see if I can zoom in here. Are you seeing this zoom in?
Yes, yes. And we can see the patch above his corporal stripes.
So that's the Hap wings patch, the HAPS Arnold wings patch. And you'll see that in this, now are you seeing the one with all the staff?
Yeah, now we're seeing all the guys in front of the plane.
Okay, so that is that's his staff. And let me now show you, I'm gonna see if I can do this without getting out of the screen share. So here's actually, can you see this?
We're back seeing the patch and
Okay.
we'll note that says this was the Army Air Force patch designed for General, et cetera, et cetera. So
this is a screenshot of my phone. And this is an actual text from the retired CIA analyst who helped me locate or find out who my grandfather worked for. And so he was, of course, the commanding officer of the Army Air Force or Army Air Corps. And he also became the first general of the Air Force branch in 1947 when it became its own branch of the military. And you can see it was called the Hap Arnold wings. So now let me show you some other things. This is him on the base with his pen and paper. That's from the family archives that my aunt just sent me the last few days. And
Mark, just a reminder, Phyllis is asking if this is going to, because it looked like this was going to tie into the psychic reading that you got today.
Okay, so yes, and we're going to end with the psychic reading.
Okay.
So again, there's let me just do this real quick. There's somewhere I've got, I may have to go to my downloads area. Let me search for basket.
You know what, while you do that, I'm going to stop the participant sharing and I'll just share a couple of comments from our audience while you look for
Okay.
it. So first of all, welcome everybody. And you know, I want to remind people that we're going to do a special event with Mark Sims and Danny Sheehan. It's going to be on June 22nd. And it's not going to be a Zoom webinar like this. It's going to be a Zoom meeting where everybody's on camera. Mark can see everybody, Danny can see everybody, and it's going to be more of an intimate conversation. And I know a lot of you have questions for Mark and questions for Danny, so we want to invite you to come join us. It's going to be on June 22nd from 6 till 8 p.m. It's a special Global Peace Tribe Presents event, and you can register. I'll put the link into the chat box here in our Zoom room and on our Facebook pages. Or go to tinyurl.com/making contact June 22. And there is a limited number of people that we're going to sell tickets to because we're going to keep it as intimate as possible. So while Mark's pulling it together, just want to let you know about that very special event that we're excited about. And want to just thank everybody who's in the Zoom room. We've got about 40 of our friends in the Zoom room. And, you know, Nancy makes a really good point, Mark, that, you know, your grandfather wanted the best for you. And he wanted you to be indoctrinated into his understanding of spiritual awakening, spiritual connection. Of course, you're 2 generations later, you're the next level of spiritual awakening. But I agree with Nancy. It's a beautiful, your grandfather had the right idea and you've taken it to the next evolution, the next step. So I'm going to put this back on you if you're ready, Mark.
Yeah, I'm ready. So I don't know if you can, I got to do a screen share again. So This is the last picture I wanted to show you. This is my grandfather. He was going to be a professional basketball player, but because of World War II, he had to join the service. And so this is him in his uniform when he was about to go pro, and that whole thing got, put on the back burner.
Sure.
So he was a tall man. He was a tall man. And there's maybe one other picture I'd like to share with you. if I can find it here. This is, can you see this now?
We still see the basketball picture.
Oh, okay. I don't know how, I'm still learning
It's
this, so I'll,
yeah, stop and then go back to screen share again is easiest.
so this is him. Can you see this picture?
Yes, our number of men marching.
So he is the guy in the dark suit with other members of the staff. And so this picture and one other leads me to believe that he was indeed the executive secretary for Hap Arnold's, for Henry Haps Arnold's. And that would have been put him at the epicenter of Roswell, because he was working in Texas with General Arnold at the time that Roswell happened. And I found a document that I believe my grandfather may have had something to do with, in terms of, if anybody knows the Roswell incident, they found the craft on July 6th. On July 8th, that was when the article came out, and then July 9th is when the armies issued the story that said, no, it's a downed weather balloon or some balloon, and they created a cover story for it. My grandfather was involved with all of that.
Wow.
And so now what we're going to do is show the video. So I've given Scott the video. This is the reading I had done a few days ago when I won this raffle. And this is Ruth Ann Friend. She's an amazing, amazing woman who did this reading. So here we go. This is me. I recorded this as.
So I don't know if he's trying to tell me that he did some kind of office paperwork files. Is that it?
That's right.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. He's very, very good at coming across. His heart belongs to you. That's what he said. I'm sad because I pick up his feelings, and he's always going to be with you. Do you have another question you might want to ask?
Can he tell me the name of the man he worked for while he was in the Air Force?
No. I'm listening. Did it sound like a Polish name? Was it a longer name? Just yes or no? I'm trying to
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to say too. I don't know if I'll get it or not. So you don't know the name if I tell you?
I do know the name.
Was it anything like Swartz? Swartz?
Say that again?
Swartz? Something like that? I may not be pronouncing it just the way he is.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll let it go a minute. Maybe it'll come.
That might be right. I'm not positive who he worked for, so this.
I'll write it down.
Okay.
And I'll just try to put it the way it kind of sounds like, but that's what I'm hearing. Okay, let's see. You have another question you'd like to ask?
Yes. Was he aware of the crash in Roswell?
Yes. Yes.
Was he aware of the bodies?
He was looking at the bodies, wasn't he, after the crash? All right, that's what I seen him doing. Yeah.
Is there anything in his papers that he left behind regarding Roswell?
Just a second. Was there anything in his papers? Yeah, but he says hidden. Do you know what he's saying? Hidden. H-I-D-D-E. Hidden. Something's hidden that you haven't found. Do you know what he's saying?
Are they hidden with the family?
Let me see what he's showing me. Sometimes he's really quick, and now it's like he's doing like this, and I see people like this. He's trying to show me that I believe he's showing me like military. Does that sound right?
That makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's military. When he's going, I see soldiers representing military. So that's good. Let's see. Anything else you want to ask?
Is there anything he wants to tell my dad?
He says sorry. Does that make sense? He was real quick on that. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry to Dad. You know what? And he says there's only been one like you that he ever met in his life. And he sends us all of his love. He's been very grateful because he's been able to open that door, and he's been so powerful and just come through on everything. And I'm happy for you. You deserve such happiness. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give you your paper here. I hope you can read this, but you can go back and go over this and see what he said again. Thank you so much. Have you?
Wow.
So I know that was difficult for many of you to hear, but what she said, so my first question to her, let me back up. When we started the interview, I didn't catch that on my iPhone. What you saw was me capturing that on the iPhone in the auditorium. And what it started out with is I had wanted her to contact my grandfather. So, but she of course didn't know that. So the first thing she said is, there's someone here and he's tall. And indeed, my grandfather was tall. And so I said yes. And she says, it's a man. I said yes. And she says, he's very close to you. And this is somebody who is very close to you, especially when you were young. And I said yes. And then she said, is there he's ready to answer a question. Do you have a question for him? And I said, I think I asked, what during World War II, what did he do? I didn't want to give her any leading questions. So I try to make it as general as possible. I said, so when you were during World War II, what did you do? And she said, he's saying he was a tech, T-E-C-H, which at first to me didn't jive with what I know about him. And she says, does that make sense? And I said, no. And so she's kind of like, asking him, well, can you explain more? And then she comes back and says, he's saying that he did filing and typing. And then I knew that she had him, because that's exactly what he would do as an executive secretary. And then I said, who did he work for? Now, this is the interesting thing. I know he worked for a general for sure. And there's a possibility that there was another general that reported to him. So he might not necessarily be Hap or General Arnold's direct executive secretary. But knowing my grandfather, he probably was. And but that doesn't necessarily is true. So when I asked who did he work for, she said Schwartz. Well, we had this thing like when I was young, whenever we didn't know somebody's name, we would have this joke. Oh, it's Joe Schwartz. Oh, Joe Schwartz said that. It was a joke.
Wow. Wow.
And so it was his way of saying, I'm not telling you on camera, but you're right. This is who I worked for. I know that's what happened.
Wow.
And so I have the piece of paper she wrote the name down on, and it's Schwartz. And so it's for me a confirmation, but I think he is protecting me because, and I'll stop there because people know, anybody, this is a very, very big deal. I mean, the biggest secret that they are holding back, they being the government and the military industrial complex and the Pentagon, is the fact that they have crashed alien technology, craft, and bodies. Now, just imagine what would happen if they said that, if they were to come out and officially state, yes, Roswell was real, and yes, we recovered a craft, and not only that, but we have bodies. Now, that would shake the world's foundation. And so I think that he was protecting me, and so that's my personal feeling about this, but I could be wrong. So I think this gives me plausible denial if anybody comes up and says, well, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to get over dramatic about it, but it's pretty freaking cool that my grandfather worked for as a secretary or was on his staff, which is for sure. There's no question he was on his staff. And then the last thing she said during that interview, I asked about, was he aware of the crash at Roswell? And her response was, not only was he aware of it, he was there and he witnessed the bodies. So this explains for everybody in my family. And I've shared this with my father and my uncle and my aunt. And we're all in agreement that this solves the mystery, because none of us knew what he did or who he worked for.
Wow. Wow. I'm going to come in for a second. What's beautiful about this, and where I want it to be relevant to everybody, is the journey of your life as a model for all of us, right? You're a scientist, you're a technology guy, you're a logical guy, you have this experience with Tejbar, it sets you on a journey, and you've been exploring and doing the meditation and doing the practice. And look at this incredible unfoldment, the magical unfoldment of your life. Now, it's a hero's journey. They make movies about things like this, but everybody watching, you all are on your own hero's journey. John Martin is on his hero's journey, and Trish and I and Nancy and Joanne and Heather and all of you have your own hero's journey. And we can learn from Mark. It may not be quite, it'll be different. It'll be our own journey, but he meditates. His imagination is open, and he's open to greater possibilities. And I think that that's a real important key for all of us, is to keep our imaginations open and be open to greater possibilities. And I'm curious if there's anything you'd like to add to that, Mark.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm just so thrilled to learn this about my grandfather in divine timing. And another part of the divine nature of this, and this is, I swear to, this is absolutely the truth. So the week before I came out here to Laughlin, I spent the week with Danny Sheehan at his house with his lovely wife, Sarah Nelson, at the Romero Institute. And we've been working on getting the harmonic convergence going, because I decided I'm going to do that. So he and I were putting together our plans for that 11-day event and who we would want to invite as speakers and presenters. And furthermore, who we would approach about being on the initial advisory board for establishing a citizens diplomacy initiative. Who are these people? It needs to be international. It needs to be people of high standing that are trustworthy, who know this phenomenon, who have value to add on this board. So we've been kind of preparing all that, and so on Sunday, the day before Memorial Day last weekend, or the weekend before last, I should say. That was the Sunday before Memorial Day. Danny always goes to Mass on Sunday morning, and he invited me to go with him. And so I went with him, just me and him went, and they had a service outside in Santa Cruz, outside of, right next to the Romero Institute. The Romero Institute is right there at the Santa Cruz Catholic Church. And so they gave, the whole thing was outside, beautiful. And when it was time for communion, Danny told me to follow him. So we got up from our chairs and I went behind him and I took communion for the first time in my life.
Wow.
And so I took the wafer and, I followed Danny to a spot where I crossed myself for the first time in my life. I ate the wafer. And when we got back from church, I got that text that I showed you from my friend, the retired CIA analyst, who said that this was from, that the patch was my grandfather, for my grandfather's uniform on his wedding day, wedding picture, was this special patch only given to staff of General Arnold. And then the next day was Memorial Day. And so it's just so incredible. I'm so blessed. I have these angels who have been watching over me, and we all have angels. All of us, every one of us, have countless angels. They are our relatives, our grandparents, our other loved ones, friends and family that are watching over us. And we really need to take time to listen, to calm our minds and meditate, because that's the most powerful, most rewarding part of meditation in my mind, is that eventually you make contact with them, our true star family.
Wow, that's a really, really beautiful story. And I love the spiritual significance of this all. There is a powerful spiritual significance to your story. And because the planet needs to wake up, we, the human species, needs to wake up, and in our own unique ways. We each have our own unique archetypal way of doing that. Trish, my wonderful partner, I want to bring you on for a moment. I know that Mark has to leave soon. I'm going to bring John on also, because I'd love to get any final questions you guys have, or how you're inspired, how you relate Mark's story to your lives.
I'm just going to have just a reflection. Is that what I love about sharing time with Mark, which I've never ever shared time in person yet, is that there's a holisticness about you and about what you share that really drives home something that's really meaningful to me, and that's my need and my value for connection. And it's to stay in connection, not just necessarily with other humans or creatures, but in as a global citizen or as a universal citizen to have that connection. And you just share so lovingly from your human and from your ability to connect and hear, and so it's a very amazing, it's so inspiring. Like I leave conversations with you just like, because I'm so inspired to know that I can still be human and still make contact and still have conversations about spirituality. Like it's very integrated and it's very holistic. So that's what I always get really inspired. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Trish. That means a lot to me. I love inspiring and informing and sharing this incredible good news. It really, we are, this is biblical. It really is. 3,000 years from now, they're going to be writing about these years that we're going through together. We are, there's going to be a total new world as a consequence of contact. And we're on the cusp of it. And I've given you a big clue, at least to my opinion, what's at the center of contact. The center of contact is making contact with our relatives. And this is what the indigenous have been telling us. That's why they say, do what their advice, like Chief Orville Looking Horse, his main advice to me was just do what we do. We sit in contemplation and we pray to the elders, we pray to our family, to our ancestors, and they answer our prayers. And that's what you need. And aren't we at a point in history where we need help? We need help. And we need to call in all the cavalry, and they are the cavalry. And I really do. I'm beginning to believe this is all part of the divine plan of our spiritual awakening, that this is maybe the second coming that's spoken of in the Bible. And we're all involved.
I mean, I can't say that I'm surprised at all that your grandfather was at Roswell. Like I'm all of it's like, well, yes, Mark, of course. I was like, of course. I'm sure. Scott, were you surprised?
No.
Like, of course. Obviously, it's in the rhythm of the genetics.
One of the people in our Zoom room, Maureen, writes, I would go as far to say that Mark's life has been designed long ago to take the path, Mark, that you are on. Things were lined up for you and you heard the call. And we all have a call. Everybody has a call. And again, I just want to acknowledge Mark as a positive role model of someone who's listening and following his call in a beautiful way. And so speaking of following the call, I know you got to go, but tell us about tell us a little bit about the Harmonic Convergence 2021.
Okay, well, we're still getting speakers committed. We're putting the roster together. So what I can tell you so far is that we've got Whitley Strieber confirmed. Pretty darn sure that we've got Ray Hernandez confirmed. Let's see. Well, of course, Danny Sheehan. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. I've been working on this for, especially the last 24 hours. Here, let me pull this up. I think we've got Richard Dolan confirmed. Donald Schmidt, who is probably the world's foremost expert on the Roswell crash, confirmed. There's a new guy that very few people have heard of. His name is Harry Dew, and he's a anthropologist and an archaeologist as well. And he's been researching the Kingman UFO crash in 1953 more than anybody. And he happens to be here. He has an exhibition booth, and he just published his book, and he's got copies of his book. But we're going to have him And he has amazing revelations to share about the Kingman crash of 1953. It turns out that there were 2 craft that crashed in Kingman, and he has some just startling evidence to share.
Wow.
Interviews with people on video, and so we're going to be putting together a presentation that will include these interviews. So that's a big deal. Let's see, hold on. We're going to have Preston Dennett, who's a prolific author on UFOs and the ET phenomenon. And what I love about Preston is his thoroughness on experiencers and witnesses, about the key messages that these people have been receiving. And one of the central themes to people who've been contacted is that this need for us to really care for our planet, to be respectful of the planet, and to reduce the nuclear power and eradicate nuclear weapons. This is a central message coming for decades from these people. Linda Moulton Howe, Barbara Lamb. Barbara is confirmed that she just confirmed today. Mary Rodwell. We're trying to get Avi Loeb. He's the astronomer from Harvard University who just published the book about the asteroid that was floating through our solar system that he believes may be of extraterrestrial origin, and which is really quite surprising that a tenured Harvard professor would do such a thing and write such a book after the story of John Mack, of course, kind of a cautionary tale that you not necessarily want to do that, but he did it anyway, and he's been on the circuit, talking about it. We're going to get him, I believe. So this is going to be amazing. We are making sure that these are really good people, that we have a solid program, and we're launching it on July 4th. And the reason why we're doing it on July 4th is because, it's clear that we have had our freedoms, our liberties, the rights that were granted to us in the Constitution seem to be eroding away. We're like the proverbial frog sitting in a boiling pot. That's, slowly the water's getting turned up. And anybody who knows that story is that if you put a frog in a pot of water and then slowly heat it up, it will eventually boil to death. It won't jump out. And that's the situation we have before us, that it seems that our sovereignty and the rights given to us through the revolution in the 18th century, that we may be losing those rights if we don't wake up. And so the July 4th launch of the Harmonic Convergence will be a refresher. So Danny Sheehan and I will be on the observation deck talking about the importance of our personal freedoms and this incredible democracy that we have, that we take for granted. And it's time for us to take notice that if we don't rise up and do something, we very well may lose our rights. And so we'll be exploring that theme for the next 11 days. We'll be talking about how do we as a human family establish diplomatic relations in a way that is transparent, that's respectful, that's responsible. And once we establish those relationships, what do we engage in? What kind of questions would we ask them? What would we say to them? We very well may need their help. So what would we ask for? So these are all the kind of things we're going to be talking about through these 11 days. And this is a great opportunity for people to engage and listen in on these discussions, because we're going to have roundtable discussions with these leaders and, academic leaders, these researchers, lawyers like Ray Hernandez, like Danny Sheehan, historians like Richard Dolan. And these are going to be the people that are going to have a say in this and help us develop a strategy and then initiate that strategy. And so we're hoping by the end of the Harmonic Convergence that we have a bit of a manifesto, something that we can share with everyone about what we're going to do and what are the milestones. So that's what we're going to be doing. And so that's it so far.
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot. And of course, we will, in the middle of that, we're going to do on July 9th, that'll be, or July 10th, July 10th, Saturday Night Live will be kind of the best of your Harmonic Convergence. And some of these, we're going to continue to just carry all of this. So Mark, we just love your enthusiasm, your energy, your role modeling. John Martin, thank you for being patient. We're going to get to John in a few moments, if you don't mind, John.
If I could just say with Mark, there's two words that come to mind. It's ascending journey when I hear the work that he's doing, and it's just so inspiring to me. And I thank you for that, Mark.
Thank you, John. That means a lot coming from you. I respect you so much. I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. Thank you.
So I'm going to leave everyone with one more picture of my grandfather.
Yay.
This is a picture that I just received today from my aunt. And that's him on the left in the dark uniform. And this is with the staff. This is General Arnold's staff at the base. And so you can see that it's pretty clear in this picture that my grandfather had a special designation within the general staff.
Yeah.
So I think it's a pretty safe bet that he was his executive secretary.
Wow. Wow. Well, God bless you. God bless your grandfather. God bless us all, Mark. Of course, I will talk to you soon. We'll see you on June the 2nd. But let's talk about Harmonic Convergence and how I can support you. Okay. Yeah.
And everyone come to the June 22nd. We're also going to do that on the observation deck. That's something I haven't talked to you yet, Scott, about, but we'll do it. We'll do it both on Zoom and on the observation deck, so people can experience both worlds. We're going to do it both ways. So Danny will be there in his avatar. I'll be there in my avatar in the auditorium of the observation deck. And afterwards, I'm going to give a personal tour of the observation deck. And so that's not to be missed. All right.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Mark.
Bye, Trish. Mwah. Thank you. Thank you for all your kind words. I love you dearly. I love you, John. I love you, Scott. I love everyone else. Have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend.
Love you too,
Love
Mark.
you too.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
Hey, Trish, how are you?
Have we met before?
I'm not sure that we have, actually. Hey.
Hi, I'm Trish. Our team partner.
Pleasure to meet you.
John is a wonderful musician and also a wonderful experiencer. And he's fairly new to my world, but he creates these wonderful videos of our friends up in the skies. He's in Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And the way he talks to them is so beautiful. Hello, my beautiful friends. So thank you so much. And he's so grateful that, and my religion is the attitude of gratitude. So, John, you were my favorite new minister.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, it's amazing the subtleties that they will exhibit. I have a camera that it's a night vision camera that I put a magnifier on. And as soon as I did that, I mean, if I were to look at the Big Dipper, you'd only see the very last star. So it's just a dime size in the sky, and they will drop into that tiny place and signal to me, and they'll come in formations. And the energy they send to me is just magnificent. And it's an ongoing journey, just like what Mark is sharing so beautifully with us. And we all have our own journey, and it's curated by the intelligences. So I encourage everybody to go out and just share your strengths, share your passions, share what you love to the universe, and they all will respond. And I agree. I think it's our own family, but it's also the universal family that is there interacting with us.
Sean, tell us a little bit about how you kind of came into this, and how this has been a spiritual awakening for you. And again, any advice that you have to people that are kind of new to this, that are intrigued. Obviously, anybody watching is intrigued, and obviously a lot of people watching are experiencers. But then there's also people that are new. How do people move forward with this?
I've always been interested in this such a fascinating area of life. And what really culminated the impetus for me was I was having dinner with President Carter in Toledo, Spain. A friend of mine has a guitar shop in Madrid, and we were donating guitars for the Carter Center Winter Auction. And so he was there in Spain. We set up the trip to go sign the labels and tour his shop, and it was just lovely. And we had dinner that night, and the subject of UFOs was brought up. I didn't do it. It was the person next to me, and he was just very open about being in South Georgia in the 60s, and this beautiful golden light appeared, in the sky, and it was as bright as the moon, but it left in a short period of time. And at that time, I'd only had a single event years prior myself in the 70s where I had a golden craft that came through my neighborhood, and he was very open about it and not judgmental. And to me, it validated my interest. And then also with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where music was used as a communication tool, I put those two things together, and I just went out on my deck with a very clear thought that I'm going to play the music that I've been playing my whole life and project that into the universe and just see if I might get a reaction. And Scott, within 2 sessions, I was walking my dog and I was walking back into our little neighborhood, and there was a purple plasma craft over our home. It had a pink ring on the bottom third of the bell, and it was just spinning silently over my home. And I went inside, and all the alarms were going off in the house, and there was just obviously scanning, I suppose. But it was beautiful. It was such a gorgeous thing. It had a feminine energy to it. And then it just slowly left. And I had my phone, and my phone would not work. As soon as it crossed the tree line, then my phone kicked back on, which I thought was interesting. And then, so I just kept playing. And a few days later, I had 4 craft in line. They were 2 sets of 2 spinning metallic craft right over my courtyard. And I went in to get my camera, and I came back and they were gone. And then about, 3 or 4 days after that, these 2 huge craft came over my courtyard, and they were in the shape of a cross and a crescent. They were metallic, burnished metal. They were the size of office buildings.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I mean, it was was just kind of mind blowing. And I went in to get my camera, and it was crossing the roof line. And very clearly in my mind, they said, please don't take our picture. We'll give you something you can take a picture of. It sounded exactly like that, Scott. And so I didn't run around the house, the side of the building or anything. I was just kind of overcome with the emotion of it. But it was magnificent. And then about 10 days later, in that same spot, this beautiful heart-shaped cloud was created. And I was just actually walking to my neighbor's house. We were going to go see Gravity, that movie. And I was walking to his house, and it said, look over here, in my mind. And I looked over, and there was that beautiful heart-shaped cloud. And there's so much that goes into that. I mean, it had to be created at that particular time with just that 2 or 3 minutes when I was walking out for it to be set right there for me. And they've done it so many times now. They create beautiful creations with clouds, and I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interactions. And and I share it with everybody, and I invite people to come with me. And when I'm outside, I talk to them as we're friends. These are my friends. How are you? Even if I don't see them, and if I have an issue, I discuss it with them. If I have a wonderful thing that happens, I discuss that as well.
John, you would send me the picture of the heart-shaped cloud. And so while you were talking, I pulled it up.
There it is.
Is it something, Trish?
Oh.
Isn't that beautiful?
I'm so glad you took a picture of it.
It was just so amazing. And I've got an entire folder full of these creations that they've made, and they're spectacular. They're just amazing.
And again, we're going to go in greater depth this Sunday with John and Debs. So everybody join us, and it's going to be very interactive. We'll probably have some of you come on and just talk about how making contact is a spiritual awakening. And I love these photos that you sent, John. They're just so beautiful. Oops.
And Scott, what I do is I play the music, but these pieces are like crystal gems in my mind. They've been there for years, and so I draw from that when I play. But they reside within me as well. And so when I'm out at the park, I can just project that in my mind. I play these pieces exactly the way I would if I was actually playing, and they recognize there's a resonance with those type of actions that are so fully ingrained, and it's artistic, and there's technical ability, and there's beauty to it. And I've been told through my mind that I've actually had craft come in, and they tell me, and like Scott, what you do, you're so technically proficient, but you touch people so deeply. They tell me that is how they control their ships. It's almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah, well, so I'll actually share a little story about that. As I was talking about earlier, I did this incredible interview with Frank Kaufman, who actually was there. He saw the crash and this, by the way, took place, my interview with him was in 1996. So it goes back quite a ways. He died a couple of years later. But the way, when they went in, there were no instruments, but in what would have been kind of the cockpit, they had six-fingered, the aliens had 6 fingers. There was a place where you could see 6 fingers could go into a key place in the ship. And so even back then, they realized, oh wow, because there's no wheels, there's no buttons, just the pilot puts his hands into the impression and becomes one with the ship, and wow. That's how they piloted it. So interesting what you just said, and
I think we approach what they achieve when we act in this way, when we're creative, when we're giving, when there's love involved, when there's a very clear purpose, and it translates beautifully to the universe. And when I have people come to sit with me, are you ready for this experience? Because I had a thing with MUFON. They asked me to do a sky watch with them, and I agreed, and I drove across to Athens, and I was sitting there projecting very clearly. It was a beautiful night. There was not a cloud in the sky, and you could see stars from the horizon to horizon, and then the shooting star effect. A lot of times when they're coming into our dimension, it's like a golden shooting star. They've done it many times, and that's when the larger ships come. And I said, "Get ready, they're here." And about 10 seconds later, this beautiful golden plasma craft appeared directly above us. And unfortunately, the MUFON director jumped up and started screaming, "It's a satellite, it's a satellite." And it was running in circles and was hysterical. And it just went whoosh and disappeared like that. And, and oftentimes I'll apologize for my own actions with our star family. And I've apologized many times for that. Because I really.
John just froze.
Uh-oh.
Actually, that must be on my end. Yikes.
You okay?
Yikes.
That was on your end, and you were saying you apologized to the star people. And can you finish that thought?
And I do. And they're very loving and very forgiving when these kind of things happen. They understand. I've had beings that have come in, and Scott, I think I sent you some pictures of a being that came in the day after Easter 2019, and through the portal, this beautiful being came, and I was not able to look at it for very long because in this density, it was hard for me to see something from another dimension. And so I was able to take about 5 pictures, but, I walked away, and I'm still kind of trying to understand why I did that. But that night, I was going back to the park because I go there every night to interact with our star family. And this beautiful golden energy came down at tree level, and I apologized to them. I said, "I'm really sorry about that. It's still difficult for me to kind of, at that point, for me to encapsulate these experiences." And and they'll do this so often, they'll just expand in brightness about tenfold, acknowledging that it was, it's difficult, and they understand that, and we're trying our best. And every experience is so special and important, and I honor every one of them.
John, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Something I've been thinking about and always forget to ask Mark as well is that they must have some understanding that our lens of perception, like the human brain has its only so much capacity to fathom or to see what is not in their current view, right? In their current perception. So they must have and I'm assuming here, the question is, do you think that they have that compassionate understanding, like, wow, these humans are really trying, and they can't see what they can't see and they're afraid because they just haven't seen it before. Like, does this make sense?
Absolutely. They understand us so much better than we give them credit for. They know they know the challenge of living in this dimension. Every aspect of it is difficult. There's so many hardships that we have to overcome. And then, when you do recognize that they're real and they are here to help us, and the energy that they give off. I was going through a very difficult period at one point. I was executor of an estate, and there was a lot of legal issues with the property and all this, and it was just so hard. And Trish made this beautiful heart cloud with a little piece taken out of it, just representing they understood that this was impacting my heart. And it was a beautiful showing from them. and you could see there's a little round craft barely in our dimension just below it. And they've done all of these wonderful things. And what's amazing too is I'll often just turn the camera on, and for some reason I said, this, I'm just filming randomly, but it's never random, is it, dear friends? And as soon as I said that, this craft dropped right in and started doing aerobatics. It's on the promo video for our show on Sunday, Scott. So I'm sure we'll be playing that on Sunday, but it was amazing. And it was so beautiful, and it was fantastic. And then all of the other orbs were around celebrating that they did it. And it's truly just a mind expanding experience. And so when I invite people to come out with me, I introduce them, and I like for them to, to acknowledge our star family, and, they're willing and accepting of this experience, and they will come in and just do beautiful, wonderful demonstrations for them. And one friend was there, and he goes, "Oh, that looks like a satellite to me." And they came in and they just went whoosh, like, "No, we're not." It was really funny. So, they're very interactive. And
John, I have a theory.
I'm sorry?
I have a funny theory.
What's your?
I like it. I think why you have so much contact is that your voice is so just delightful that why wouldn't they be like, "Oh my goodness, John, hi, how are you?" It's just like really captivating, and it's so soothing, and it's very friendly.
Well, I think it's the musical aspect of my life. Everyone meditates in different ways. I play music for 8 and 10 hours at a time and don't even really think about it. So I think there might be a musical lilt, I guess, that carries through, but
it's a very specific cadence. I'm wondering, just totally side note, sorry everyone, do you do guided meditations? Because this would be amazing. Your voice is amazing.
I have a YouTube channel that you can, my dog, what's wrong, Bo? You're all right. Come here. I got you. Hold on, my dog is, let me help him. His Bodie. I have a YouTube channel. Let's see. John Martin UFO and ET Intelligences. And my TikTok is John Martin, at John Martin 1779. And Trish, what I do is every night I have probably 8 or 10 video clips, and I put them together as a compilation for the night, and I upload them to YouTube, and then I pick out one sample and put it on TikTok. And so I've got, I don't know, 180 videos up now, I think, something crazy like that. And each one is so important and so different, and I think life affirming, and it's just great fun beyond that. I mean, it's just wonderful. Is Scott back? There he is.
Scott's here. I think that this is a good time for us to wrap up, because I really want to encourage people to come on Sunday to our Sacred Sunday show. And again, it's going to be, and John will play some music, and we'll show some photos, we'll show some videos. We also have another wonderful woman, Debs Shakti, who's also an experiencer, is going to be joining us. So everybody join us this Sunday. It's going to be a really, really special night, and we want you to be there with us. And hopefully that's coming up. Yeah, there we go. John, thank you. Trish, another special show. And also tomorrow night, Saturday Night Live, we are celebrating the 60s. So I'll pull that poster up. It's going to be really, really fun. We've got
that one now. That's awesome.
Oh, remember the band Steppenwolf?
Oh my goodness.
Well, John Kay, who was Steppenwolf, he was the lead guitar player. He's going to be on live with us. We've got David Silver, who was one of the top agents, worked with the Beatles, talking about his experiences with the Beatles. We've got Jesse Colin Young singing his famous song, Come On People Now, singing it now, he sounds great. Tribute to Ram Dass. We've got Maria Muldar is going to be joining us. So it's going to be a special show. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe. It's a fun weekend. We always start our weekend off with straight talk. So, and thank you everybody for watching. Share this out with your friends. It's a great way to make new friends and let people know all about Trish and John and Mark and Scott and all that we do. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a wonderful Friday and Saturday. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week.